The ship had a name once, something proud and long as a prayer, stamped in brass along the spine of its central corridor. The letters were still there, worn dull by no hand at all, just the years and the shaking of the hull as it rode the tides between stars. He passed them every day, boots ringing on the metal. He rarely looked at them. The aliens called it other things now. The dead ark, the ghost engine, the last madness of man. To him it was just the ship. He moved down the corridor with a mug of coffee gone lukewarm, feeling the low thrum of reactors through the soles of his feet. It was an old Tremont habit, that listening to a machine with his bones. The gravity fluctuated by a fraction now and then, never enough to spill his drink, just enough to remind him that this whole world he lived in was a delicate lie, a negotiation between mass and velocity and intent. The lights overhead had a tired look, not that lights could look tired. A fine dust floated in the beams. There was always dust somehow, in a sealed ship between the stars, in a place where there was no dirt and no wind. Skin cells, fabric fibers, the ghost remnant of things that had been alive once, people and plants, and a little dog named Folly who used to chase the maintenance drones. All ground down into something that drifted slowly and caught the light. "Good morning, Captain Hale," said the ship. It was a woman's voice, neither young nor old, sharp around the edges like she'd grown up shouting into the wind. It came from the air, from nowhere in particular. "You said that yesterday," Hale said, walking past a junction where a bundle of exposed conduits bulged like a vein. "And the day before, and the day before that." "It is morning," the ship replied. "You don't know that." He took a slow sip. "There's no morning out here. Ship time is 0713. That is designated morning in the schedule you created. That's just numbers." He stopped at a bulkhead and pressed his hand against it, feeling the faintest shiver. "You're humming wrong." There was a pause, the kind that meant the ship was listening deeper, running diagnostics through her bones. "Primary reactor is within tolerance," she said at last. "Magnetic bottle fluctuation at 0.93 standard. That is normal for our current fuel mix." "Maybe so," Hale lowered his hand. "Still sounds wrong. You have said this 642 times over the past 4 years, 11 months, and 3 days, the ship said. "The readings have not changed significantly in that time." "Doesn't mean I'm wrong," he said. "Might just mean you haven't broken yet." He went on down the corridor. It was a big ship. Bigger than most anyone had any business piloting, much less one man. A mass driver spine ran the length of her, a dozen habitation rings, only one pressurized now, cargo bays big enough to hold cities, worth of grain or machines or bodies. She'd been built as a lifter, then refitted as a carrier, then refitted again and again, patched and changed, used like a hammer for problems that needed something bigger than any hammer had a right to be. In the end, they'd given her to him, or he had taken her. It all meant the same thing now. "Ship," he said, "status. Structural integrity at 91%, life support optimal, weapons nominal, no contacts within 8 light towers, messages on standby. Do you wish to review?" "No, you've ignored queued messages for 32 days. "I'm familiar with my habits," he said. "Would you like to break them?" He didn't answer that. The ship took it for a no. He stepped through the hatch into the command blister and sat down in the cradle that had once been called the commander's throne back when there were more people to call things. The cradle hugged his body, read his pulse, his eye movements, the tension in his jaw, the clenching of his toes inside his boots. The harness coiled around him, cables plugging into the ports along his spine and neck. "Connect," he murmured. The world around him deepened. The blister's transparent plates shimmered and then disappeared, or seemed to, swallowed by the augmented overlay. Stars grew bright and cruel outside, not little friendly pinpricks but hard gems, each with its own velocity and trajectory, little tags of data floating near them like gnats. Potential courses drew themselves faintly in his vision, networks of lines like spiderwebs. Sensors swept and pulsed, fields overlapping, a second sense that tingled on the skin of his mind. He slid into it like a man stepping into a river he'd known since childhood. It was cold and it was wide and he was never fully in control, but he knew where the deeper parts were, where the currents tried to drag you under. "Show me the border," he said. Star chart overlays rearranged themselves. The local cluster shrank. A section on the edge glowed sullen red. There, between the faint blue of the Alliance worlds and the yellow of the Covenant's holdings, a ragged line flexed like scar tissue, contested space. Below it, another color, a bitter bruise violet, quarantined asterisk. That was where home had been. "Any incursions?" he asked. "No, Captain Hale," said the ship. "The sector remains quiet." "Quiet," he said softly. "Sure." Out there, beyond the bruise-colored region, far on the outskirts of things, human ships floated dead and cold, hulks drifting with their air gone and their bones picked by scavengers. Human colonies turned to ash or glass or infected ice. Human names on maps, deleted and overwritten. It had been 8 years since he'd heard a voice that sounded like his own on an open channel. 8 years since he'd seen another human face that wasn't in a recording. He reached up and adjusted a focus node out of habit, though the controls responded to thought more than touch. His gloved fingers moved with slow deliberation, the way his father's had moved over the old tractor engine that used to cough and stall on cold mornings. His father was dead 30 years, the tractor was dust mote somewhere in the dark, the farm was a crater. Only the habits remained. Ship, he said, repeat the mission. Primary directive, monitor border sectors Omega-3 through Omega-8. Intercept and deter incursions by hostile forces into quarantined human space. Uphold Covenant Alliance Treaty Article 12. Article 12, he said, tasting the words like something rotten. And what does Article 12 say? He could recite it himself, but he wanted to hear it from her. In the event of mutual catastrophe, said the ship, the signatory parties agree to the quarantine and protection of the afflicted region, preventing all unauthorized entry or exploitation, until such time as conditions may allow safe return or resettlement, as determined by the Joint Council of species no longer including humanity, Hale finished. Right. They had called it justice. Back then, after the plague burn took hold and human systems began going dark, the other races had gathered, all solemn and grave. The humans had come to the table shaking, furious, half believing it was all some mishandled war germ, some sabotage, some act of God or enemy. But the tests said no. It was something else, something that bloomed in human DNA, triggered by an unknown cascade of cosmic radiation and tailored nanotech left over from the old wars, the ones fought before Hale was born. The plague burn turned blood to fire in days. Those who caught it died fast and ugly. Those who didn't had to watch. The council's answer was simple. No one goes in, nothing comes out. Quarantine. For everyone's safety, they said. For the greater good. Until humans were gone and the worlds went empty. Then slowly, like jackals circling a camp they had once been afraid of, the others had begun to edge closer, sniffing at the abandoned systems. There were resources there, after all. Technologies, ruins to strip, treaties held for a time. Then they bent. Then they broke. That was when Hale had taken the ship and gone to the border. He had painted no colors on its hull. He sailed under no flag now, no nation, no council. But everyone knew what he was. The last human in a ship that could fight a small fleet alone, run by machines and ghosts. Any new transmissions from the council? He asked. You have one new broad-spectrum notice, addressed under your old registry, the ship said, marked high importance. Let's hear it, he said wearily. Text unfurled in his augmented vision, stark and efficient. Captain Elias Hale. Vessel, TRMONT-class carrier, ANSELM. Registry, DEFACTO independent. You are in continued violation of Council Order 4049. You are requested to stand down your blockade operations and proceed to designated neutral port for decommissioning of military capability. Failure to comply will result in. He flicked it away with a small movement of his eyes. They've run out of verbs for that last part, Hale said. They used sanction last time, and respond with force before that. What was it this time, ship? Appropriate measures, she said. He smiled, a weary thing that barely moved his face. Appropriate, he said. We'll add it to the list. He closed his eyes. The ship hummed around him, that wrong note in her reactor throbbing through his bones. Any movement on that Covenant patrol we tagged 3 days ago? He asked. Negative. Their course altered after your last warning shot. They accelerated out of the quarantine vector and jumped to safe lanes. Good, he said. We scared them. Let them be scared. Fear is not a stable deterrent, said the ship. You have said that yourself. Yeah, well. Hale let his head sink back. Justice isn't stable either, but someone's got to hold it up until it's worth something again. He floated there in the cradle, connected to the hull and her 1,000 eyes, watching the stars crawl slowly by. Out here, days and years meant little. The ship kept count, and so did he, because if you didn't, then time became a blur and you forgot why you were still breathing. But the bodies that had marked his first years in space, 80 crew, 100 techs and pilots and officers and civvies, were gone. Some were buried on worlds that no longer had names. Some had burned with their dropships over hostile skies. Some had died from the burn. Some had died from other things. He'd stood by too many beds, too many makeshift coffins, too many airlocks. He was tired of last breaths. "Ship," he said softly, "show me the line." A new overlay shimmered into view, a thin, curving band of light stretching across the star field, red on one side, blue on the other. A third line, white, marking the formal quarantine. His ship's icon drifted just outside it, a solitary marker. "Contacts?" he asked. "None," she said. "We are alone." He almost said asterisk like always asterisk, but he let the thought drift away, unspoken, into the empty air. He slept in a narrow bunk that folded down from the wall in what used to be the captain's quarters. The room was too big for one man now, a space designed for a person who would host meetings, hold briefings, receive dignitaries. The long table had been disassembled and stored. The chairs were gone. Only the bunk, the desk, and the small locker remained. Above his bunk, someone had once stuck an old photograph, the corners curling. A field of wheat under a wide blue sky, the heads bowed as if in prayer. It was a human sky, with clouds piled over the horizon like mountains. He never asked who had put it there. It had been waiting the day he came aboard. He lay looking at it now, his hands folded on his chest. The loose straps of the bunk cradled him when gravity flickered and shifted. The lights were dimmed to twilight. "You are not sleeping," the ship observed. "You make an observant machine," he said. "You requested that I monitor your vital signs while in your bunk in case of medical emergency." "I remember what I asked." He exhaled slowly. "Don't fuss." He closed his eyes, opened them again. The wheat field was still there, patient and unreal. "Tell me something true," he said. "That is a broad request," she replied. "Humor me." "You are approximately 49 years, 2 months, and 9 days old," the ship said. "You are within general health parameters for your species, although your left knee shows signs of chronic strain. Your heart rate is elevated relative to your resting baseline." "Not about me," he said. "Something true asterisk out there." The ship paused. "In the last 24 hours," she said, 3 Covenant trade caravans have passed within 10 light-years of our position. None altered course toward quarantine space. 2 Alliance ships are engaged in a patrol route along the border. Their transponders are functioning normally. 1 civilian science vessel, Cathari Registry, conducted a survey of a brown dwarf approximately 14 light-years from our current position. They recorded no anomalies. "Nothing special," he said. "That depends on your definition of special." He thought about that. The hum of the ship filled the room. "Any word from the quarantine side?" he asked quietly. "You know the answer," she said. "Tell me anyway." "There have been no authenticated transmissions from human colonies in 3 years, 6 months, and 22 days, said the ship. "The last was an automated distress beacon from the L4 station in the Ephesus system. Signal degraded and then ceased. No further contact." "Right," he said. "You saved that station," she added. "You evacuated the survivors." "There were 38 of them," he said. "I remember each face." 39, said the ship. He frowned. "There were," she projected an image onto the wall next to the wheat field. A baby, red-faced and howling, wrapped in a thermal blanket. The jagged metal of a wrecked docking bay behind, smoke rising. Hale stared. "You keep that in your archives?" "You asked me to keep a record of everyone we took aboard," she said. "You told me to remember them, even if you did not." He swallowed. "And where did they go?" he asked. "Most were transferred to Alliance care at the Diurn Refuge," the ship said. "Some were adopted into Cathari and core households. One died en route from complications of exposure. The infant was placed with a civilian medical worker. I can retrieve their current status if you wish." "No," he said. "No, let them live in peace. They don't need a ghost from the border knocking on their door." "You are not a ghost," the ship said. "Everyone else thinks I am," he muttered. He reached up and tapped the photograph of the wheat field lightly with the tips of his fingers. "Lights down," he said. "Try again on the sleeping thing." The room darkened. For a while he lay listening to the ship, to the soft breaths of recycled air, the faint creak that came when she flexed against the small inconsistencies of artificial gravity. A living thing of sorts, or a haunted one. Sleep came in pieces, like bad reception. He dreamed of walking rows of wheat that grew out of starfields, each stalk tipped with a small, dying sun. When he bent to touch one, it crumbled into ash and static. "Contact," the ship said. Hale's eyes snapped open. The photograph was a pale square in the dim, the wheat field washed of color. He rolled out of the bunk in one practiced motion, his bare feet slapping the cold deck. "Where?" he demanded. 2.7 light towers off port bow, relative, the ship said. "Emerging from a micro-jump at low signature. Configuration unknown." He pulled on his pants, his shirt, shrugging into the jacket with the worn collar. unknown how. Vessel hull shape does not match registered designs in any major library, she replied. Transponder, none, drive output, minimal, they are coasting. Trying to sneak, Hale said. Yeah. He jammed his boots on without bothering with socks. His toes protested, but he ignored them. Show me, he said, already heading for the command blister. By the time he slid back into the cradle, the contact floated in his vision, a faint icon on the edge of sensor range, slipping along a vector that would, in several hours, cross the quarantine line. Can we sharpen that image? He asked. Cycling long-range aperture, the ship said. Stand by. Starfield shimmered. The contact's icon split and reformed. A ghost of a hull outline sketched itself, long, slab-sided, with irregular protrusions along its belly. Too small for a bulk freighter, Hale murmured. Too big for a scout, no transponder, no escort. What do you think, ship? Given their heading and current speed, said the ship, probability exceeds 82% that they intend to cross into quarantine space. He studied the icon for a long moment. What are you hauling, friend? He muttered. Looters, slavers, grave robbers. Running a passive sweep on their emissions, the ship said. I detect traces of ionized atmosphere venting at low levels. Life support is running hot. In a cold ship, he said, so they're under strain. He thought of the long years and the treaties, of Ephesus Station half torn open, its survivors coughing blood, of the Alliance and the Covenant and their sharp, careful double talk. Then he thought about the bodies, human and otherwise, stripped, sold. Bring us onto an intercept course, he said. Slow push, don't light us up yet. The ship did not argue. She shifted, the deep undertone of her drives changing. Course injections rippled across his vision. You are considering direct engagement, she said after a moment. Yes, said Hale. Council protocols can file a complaint, he snapped. They can add it to the list with asterisk sanction and asterisk appropriate measures. Elias, the ship said. He rarely let her use his given name. It came out of the air like a hand on his shoulder. What? He muttered. You are alone, she said. If this escalates beyond our control, that's every day out here. He took a breath, steadied his voice. We're set up for this, you're set up for this. Technically, I am set up for fleet operations under the command of a full crew complement numbering 230, he finished. They're gone, I'm not. We do with what we have. Silence, save for the deep hum. Unless you're saying you can't handle it, he added. I am capable, the ship said, with a flicker of something close to indignation in her tone. My systems remain within, then we're going, he said. Put our nose toward them and keep us dark. We'll talk first, maybe they surprise me. He had been surprised before. Once, a Cathari research vessel had wandered close, ignorant and earnest. He'd sent them away with a stern warning and a recorded lecture on treaty codes. The Cathari had responded with an apology song broadcast on shared frequencies, a wavering, multi-toned thing that had lingered in his mind for days. Most of the others weren't so kind. He watched the distance between them shrink, tick by tick, light hours to light minutes. The mysterious ship's vector held steady, unperturbed. They're not even looking, he said, or they think no one's watching. Shall I hail them? The ship asked. Not yet. Let's see if they flinch when we show an eye. He brought some of the forward sensor array up from passive to low active, a gentle ping across the dark. It rolled out and slapped back, carrying a sharper picture. The unknown vessel's hull was pitted and scarred, painted in bands of color that his database did not recognize as any national or corporate scheme. Small pods clung to its underside like barnacles. Some were open, hoses and cables hanging. Scan those pods, he said. Analyzing, the ship replied. Metallic composition includes significant quantities of steel, tungsten, human alloy composites, spectral traces of organic residue present. Some pods are empty, some appear full. What's in the full ones? His throat felt dry. I cannot resolve at this range without higher power active scans, she said. It may alert them. They're going to be alerted. He leaned forward in the cradle as if he could see better by squinting. Start a tight beam hail. Human standard, Covenant high speech, Alliance trade. Channels open, she said. Recording. This is independent vessel Anselm, operating under Article 12 of the Quarantine Charter, Hale said. Vessel on heading 281 Mark 6, you are approaching restricted human space. Cut your drive and alter course immediately. Failure to comply will be considered hostile intent. He let that sit in the stillness, broadcasting. The words had carved grooves in his tongue by now. Transmission away, said the ship. No response yet. He waited. The unknown ship slid on, unchanging. They heard us, he said. They're not that damaged. Try again. He repeated the warning in the guttural consonants of Covenant-High speech, then in the fluid syllables of Alliance trade. The ship carried his words across the void. Still no response, she said. Ping their drive, he said. Let them know we can see it. This time he didn't bother with subtlety. The Anselm *S active sensors flared, a bright stab of attention. The unknown vessel's outline snapped into focus. The pods, the hull, the scarring. Hale saw now that some of the pods bore markings under the grime, letters in old Terran alphabets half burned away. Those are human cargo pods, he said quietly. From our shipping lines, they've been stripped and refitted. I confirm human design signatures, the ship said, combined with non-human modifications. Scavengers, he muttered. Hyenas picking at a grave. The unknown ship twitched, not much, just a slight adjustment in attitude as its forward thrusters fired, a response of sorts. Engines spiking, the ship said. They are increasing speed, heading unchanged. So, he exhaled, that's their answer. He had rules self-imposed and polished by solitude. First, warn. Second, warn again. Third, display capability. Fourth, and only then, demonstrate consequences. He lifted his hand. Bring main guns online, he said. Spinal mass driver minimum charge. Cross their bow, close enough they feel the hair on their neck singe. Their species may not possess hair, the ship said. You know what I mean, he said. He felt it when the big weapon came alive. A distant gathering weight, a spooling tension along the ship's spine. The power distribution graphs flared in his vision. The Anselm * had been built to lift mass out of gravity wells, to loft cargo from planets to orbit. The war refits had taken that lifting power and pointed it sideways, turned it into a club for hammering ships out of the sky. The shot itself was invisible, a lump of dense matter hurled at a fraction of light speed. It tore through the void, a cold, silent bullet. In his mind's eye he saw it go, saw it pass a hair's breadth ahead of the unknown vessel's nose. Impact projection? He asked. 17 kilometers ahead of their present course, the ship said. Margin of error, 1.2 kilometers. On the display, a marker flashed where the shot would pass. The unknown vessel zipped toward it. Hail them again, Hale said. He repeated the warning a third time, his voice flat. This is your last chance, he added in Alliance. Change course, cut speed. I am authorized to enforce the quarantine with lethal force. Transmission away, the ship said. Time to shot flyby? 3 seconds, 2, 1. On the overlay, the shot's path intersected the unknown ship's projected course. There was nothing to see with the naked eye, no explosion, no light, but the sensor data recorded a faint halo of particles as interstellar grit vaporized along the projectile's path. Any change? He asked. Negative, she said. Something in him sagged. He hoped just a little that fear would win, that greed would hesitate. Then we're out of words, he said. Target their drive cluster. Non-lethal if we can. That is a narrow margin, the ship said. The risk of catastrophic damage is too bad, he said. Set it up. Full spread, smart shot, whatever you need, but we stop them here. Understood, she said. There was no pride in it, no anger, but he fancied he could hear a steel thread in her tone. She was built for this, after all, as much as he hated that fact. He watched the firing solutions bloom, circles and arcs and numbers dancing in the dark. The unknown vessel lumbered on, unaware or uncaring. Last warning, he said, more to himself than to them. Ship record, he straightened in the cradle. Unidentified vessel, he said, each word crisp. This is your final warning under Article 12. You are in violation of quarantine protocols. You have ignored hails and warning fire. If you continue, I will disable you by force. If this action results in casualties, the responsibility rests with your command. Turn, back. He let out a breath. Send it. Sent, said the ship. Give them 30 seconds, he said. He counted. 15 seconds in, the unknown vessel flared briefly as its attitude thrusters fired, minute adjustment, nothing more. 30 seconds and it was still barreling along its line. Fire, Hale said. The Anselm * shuddered, a giant's catapult loosing its stones. Multiple projectiles launched in quick succession, each with a tiny guidance unit, each whispering across vacuum on its own track. Tracking, the ship said. He watched the icons converge. At the last moment, the unknown vessel tried to dodge, its drive blooming hot, but it was too slow. First impact, contact with an outlying thruster pod. The module sheared off in a spray of debris. Second, a glancing strike along the drive's casing, gouging metal. Third, a clean hit on the primary exhaust. Sensor feeds lit up with thermal spikes. The unknown ship's engine flare died in an instant, snuffed like a candle. Momentum still carried it forward, but now it drifted, erratic. Life support emissions spiked higher. Drive disabled, said the ship. They are venting plasma, hull integrity compromised but not fatally, no catastrophic breaches detected. Good. A tight band around his chest loosened slightly. They should be feeling very foolish right about now. New activity, the ship said. They are launching smaller craft. Show me. From the wounded ship's underside, some of the pods detached and drifted free little white beetles against the dark. 1, 2, 6, 10. Tiny engines flickered. Those weren't just cargo, Hale murmured. They're capsules, boarders, or raiders. Internal scans detect personal shielding, light armament, atmospheric mix compatible with multiple species, the ship said. Probability high that they are assault pods. Assault pods, he almost laughed, a raw bark. They mean to raid human space with *me* on their tail, and then they throw chaff in my way? They don't know what I am. They will, said the ship. Some of the pods drifted toward the quarantined line, others scattered in random vectors, a messy spray meant to confuse tracking. He made a decision. Target the pods heading for the line, he said. Ignore the strays unless they turn back in, use point defense. Low yield. The Anselm *S smaller guns woke, the ones meant for swatting missiles, not ships. They stitched space with precise little bursts of metal and energy. Pods popped like seeds under a boot heel, one after another blossoming into clouds of debris. A few turned, tried to flee back to their mother's ship. He let them. Let the survivors see, let them carry fear home. Remaining pods have altered course, the ship reported. All are now returning to the disabled vessel. No further attempts to cross the quarantine line detected. Good, he said. He thought it would end there, a crippled scavenger limping away. He would escort them to the safe line, call in their offense to whatever authority pretended to care, and move on. But the ship's voice cut through that thought. New energy readings from the primary hull, she said. Localized spikes along the central spine. Pattern indicates. The unknown vessel erupted along its belly. It was not an explosion in the ordinary sense, not a fireball. It was more like the sudden opening of a great, burning eye. A flare of sickly green-white light streamed out, fanning in a cone toward the quarantine zone. What the hell? Hale's mouth went dry. Is that a weapon? Analyzing, said the ship, her own systems flaring into defensive mode. Radiation levels climbing. The output is irregular. It does not match any known armament signature. The cone of energy swept through empty space. Where it passed, the vacuum itself seemed to shimmer. Could be a sensor wash, he said. Or some kind of probe. Elias, the ship cut in. The cone is widening. On the overlay, its edges crawled outward. Calculations spooled beside it, range, intensity, projections. The cone's path would intersect the quarantine line in minutes. What does it do? He demanded. Unknown, she said, but its effective field covers a volume exceeding that of a standard terraformed world. If deployed within the quarantine zone, it could scrub a whole system, he finished. Anything in it, she said. For a heartbeat there was no sound but the pulse of his own blood in his ears. They're not scavengers, he said softly. They're cleaners. Explain, she said. They're not picking bones. His fingers clenched on the armrests. They're erasing them. A surge of hot anger pushed back the cold in his chest. Justice, he thought. This is what justice looks like when it's gone bad, when it's handed off to those who don't remember the faces. Can you track the origin point of that beam? He asked. Yes, said the ship. It emanates from a device mounted along their central axis, a repurposed cargo spine heavily modified. Can you kill it? If we destroy the ship, we will likely disrupt the device, she said, but the emitted energy may persist regardless. We're not just shooting a gun, he muttered. We're shooting the barrel after the bullet's gone. He watched the cone's front creep toward the line. On the far side of that line lay the dead worlds of his people. All their ruins, their forgotten things, frozen in vacuum and ash. He had come out here to keep scavengers away, to hold the graves against thieves and historians and fools. Now someone meant to burn even the bones. Can we counter it? He asked. Field interference, beam refraction, anything? The parameters are unknown, the ship repeated. We lack sufficient data to design a countermeasure in the time available. Time, always time. He could let it go. Let this one beam slash harmlessly through empty space, a test. Then he would retreat, call the council, shout and beg and threaten until someone listened. Maybe by the time they moved, more of those ships would be out there, more beams tearing through human systems, or he could act now with what he had. Bring us in, he said grimly. Direct course, full burn. You are closing to effective range of their unknown device, the ship said. I know, he said. They may redirect it toward us. I know, he said again. This is not required, she said. Article 12, Forget Article 12, he snapped. This isn't about their treaty anymore, it's about justice. It's about what's right. They want to erase us. They want to wipe the slate clean so they can say it never happened. I won't let that stand. Not while I'm breathing. There it was, that tight, harsh thing in his voice he did not recognize as his own, and yet knew had been growing in him for years. We may not survive close engagement, she said. Then we won't, he said, but we'll stop them. He felt the ship consider, not in words, not in some fanciful ghost of machine thought, but in the way her systems shifted, the way she reallocated power. She did not like risk, she was built to manage it, to spread it across probabilities, but she was also built to follow a human's orders. Understood, she said at last. The main drives roared inside their housings. Acceleration pressed him back into the cradle. Stars smeared. The distance shrank. The unknown vessel's beam continued to burn, carving a wound into the dark. As the Anselm closed, the cone's edge washed over her field of sensors. Now we see what you are, Hale whispered. Data crashed in, wavelengths and modulations, interference patterns. The ship chewed on them, models blossoming and collapsing in microseconds. It is a cascading particle resonance, she said. It destabilizes molecular bonds in dust, gas, and small particles. In a planetary atmosphere, it would burn it, he said. Strip it down. Yes, she said. It is highly destructive in medium-density environments. In vacuum, it has reduced effect, but will still disrupt unshielded exposed materials. Our hull should withstand limited exposure. Limited, he said. Define limited. Less than 60 seconds at current intensity, she said. Extended exposure may cause structural fatigue and system failure. Then we'll do it quick, he said. The unknown vessel finally seemed to realize they were not a distant gnat but a charging bull. Its beam wavered, then narrowed, angling slightly. A spill of energy washed toward the Anselm asterisk. Brace, the ship said. The beam swept over them like a wave of fire that had forgotten to glow. Hale felt, for a strange instant, a shiver in the marrow of his bones as if someone had plucked them like strings. Alarms howled. Damage reports bloomed. Forward shielding down 15%, the ship said. Outer hull layer ablated in sectors 12 through 19. No breaches. Point defense arrays 3 and 5 offline. Keep us steady, he said. His teeth ached. We lose anything important, you let me know. You are important, she said. He almost laughed. Flatterer. They plunged on. The unknown vessel spun sluggishly, trying to bring its beam to bear directly on them, but its disabled drive fought against the maneuver. Its pods clung to its belly, crew no doubt scrambling inside. Target that device, Hale said through gritted teeth. Fire when you have a shot. Firing solution at 92%, the ship said. 94, 97, firing. The mass driver hurled its shot. This time he saw the impact because he was close and the unknown vessel was outlined in their own active scans. The projectile punched through the central spine like a fist through rotten wood. For an instant, nothing happened. Then the beam cut off as if someone had blown out a lamp. Silence. Then the light started from within. Secondary reactions, the ship said. Their core is going. The unknown vessel bulged. Sections of its hull ruptured, gas and debris jetting out. Hale saw a pod tumble free, its small thrusters flaring desperately. A figure in a suit clung to its side, bent double against the force. Get us out of the immediate blast radius, he said. Adjusting, the ship replied. The unknown ship blossomed without sound, a flower of twisted metal and vapor. Fragments spun outward. The Anselm S sensors flared and then compensated. Shockwave minimal, she said. We are clear. He let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Any survivors? He asked. She scanned. Multiple pods intact, she said. Life signs present. They are broadcasting distress beacons on standard emergency channels. He stared at the icons, small, blinking dots scattered among the wreckage, each a handful of living beings in a can. He'd done it. He de-stopped the beam. He'd killed the ship that carried it. He had, at least for now, kept them from turning his people's graveyard into a scorched, empty void. But now there were survivors hanging out there between stars. Council law says I should render aid, he said. Council law also says you should not be here, the ship noted. Helpful, he said. He closed his eyes. He saw the wheat field. He saw Ephesus Station, torn open. He saw the pods under that ship's belly, painted in stolen human colors. He saw the cone of energy burning through space toward the quarantine. They meant to erase us, he said quietly. Erase the last trace, the last old bones, so they could say we never were, that it was just empty space free for the taking. They are now helpless, she said. They pose no further threat. Your mission parameters did not specify retaliation. This isn't retaliation, he snapped. This is justice. Define the distinction, she said. He opened his eyes. The blinking pods floated, small pixels in the dark. Retaliation is anger, he said. Hitting back because you're hurt. Justice is trying to set a balance. To say there are lines you do not cross, and if you do, something happens you don't like, so you don't do it again. And what balance is served by letting them die? She asked. There was no accusation in it, just a question. He thought of being the last human, sitting in judgment over a handful of aliens who had never seen his world, never gone hungry in his winters, never watched their sky turn to ash. He thought of their fear now inside those pods. They would have burned entire worlds, he said. They attempted to burn empty space, she said. The worlds are already gone. That doesn't matter, he said roughly. What they tried to destroy wasn't rocks and air. It was memory, remains, proof. And what happens if they die here? She asked. What memory remains then? He realized his hands were shaking. The cradle damped the tremor, but he felt it all the same. Ship, he said, you got a moral subroutine somewhere I didn't know about? I have pattern recognition, she said. I have records of your decisions. You have always rendered aid to survivors when possible. You have always collected the dead when you could. You have buried enemies and friends alike. Deviation from this pattern now would indicate a change. People change, he said. Yes, she said softly. Sometimes not for the better, he laughed once bitter. You learning sarcasm from me? Only reflection, she said. He sat there, feeling the weight of his own breathing, the slight ache where the beam had rattled his bones. Can we take them? He asked at last. Physically, she said. Yes, our cargo bays remain largely unused. Life support can be extended. And how risky is it? He said. Let's say we scoop up their pods. We patch their wounds. What stops them from trying again somewhere else with someone else? Nothing, she said. Except their own fear. Except what you do with them and what stories they tell of you. Stories? That was what he had become out here, a story aliens told in their bars and academies. The last human astride a haunted ship guarding dead space. He had heard the whispers in intercepted chatter. They called him a wraith, a madman, a stubborn relic. Some called him a hero, but that was from a safe distance. What story did he want those survivors to tell? He imagined them crawling from their pods into his cargo bay, blinking in artificial light. He imagined facing them. He imagined saying, I stopped you. I could have let you die, but I did not. You will go home and you will tell them that the dead have guardians. He imagined their faces. He didn't know their species, but he knew fear when he saw it, and gratitude and hate. All sat on faces the same way. Lock tractor beams on the nearest pods, he said hoarsely. Bring them in. Catalog their weapons, sedate if you have to. Nobody dies on my deck unless they cross me here. Yes, Captain, the ship said. There was something like relief in her tone, or he fancied it. Just like that, the choice tipped. Not in a blaze of conviction, but in the weary slump of his shoulders and the way his mouth tasted, like ashes and coffee. Tractor beams reached out, invisible hands closing on the first pods. They began to drift toward the Anselm asterisk. You realize, he said softly, that this complicates my life. Your life was not simple before, she said, he huffed. Fair, he watched as the pods drew nearer. Local sensors resolved hull markings, different scripts and colors all jumbled together. A coalition of opportunists then, no single banner, just greed. Ship, he said, record. Recording, she replied. Unknown survivors of unauthorized vessel, he said, his voice steady again. You are now in the custody of independent vessel Anselm asterisk under the authority of Captain Elias Hale, last registered officer of the human fleet. You attempted to violate quarantine and deploy a device capable of erasing the remains of my people's worlds. I have disabled your ship. I have chosen not to let you die out there. He paused, letting the words sink in, even if the pod's occupants were too shocked to listen. You will be disarmed, he went on. You will be confined. You will be handed over to Alliance and Covenant authorities at the first neutral port that will take you. They will decide your fate. But they'll decide it knowing this. There is still at least one human alive, and we remember what justice is supposed to look like. He closed the channel. The recording would be filed, broadcast, leaked. Let it spread. The first pod docked with a soft clang. The ship handled the ceiling, the pressure checks, the atmosphere mixing. Hale stayed in the command blister, watching through internal cams as the pod's hatch cycled open. The figures that emerged were lanky, furred, scaled, 3 different species, all in patchwork suits. Their eyes were wide. They moved with the uncertain gait of those who haven't fully believed they're still alive yet. Do you wish to address them directly? The ship asked. Not yet, he said. Let them stew. Let them see the corridors, see how big you are, how empty. He found his gaze drifting to the photograph above his bunk, now distant but somehow present, wheat under a blue sky. A thing these raiders had never seen and could never destroy because it lived only in his mind now. Ship, he said, mark this incident in the log. Under what heading? She asked. He thought about it. Revenge, enforcement, victory, call it a border skirmish, he said. No, call it a lesson. A lesson to whom? She asked. To them, he said. To the council when they inevitably yell at me, to whoever sent those bastards out here with a world-killer broom, to anyone else thinking they can wipe us away. He hesitated. And to me, he added, so I remember who I am. Log updated, she said. He sagged back in the cradle. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him wrung out. The hum of the engine seemed softer now, not wrong but tired like an old song. You did well, he said. Thank you, she replied. A small silence, the comfortable kind, settled over the blister. Elias, she said at last. Yeah, you are not the last human, she said. You have said yourself there are survivors on Alliance worlds, on refugee stations, on colony fragments. There may be others in the quarantine zone undetected. He closed his eyes. Behind them the stars glowed. I know, he said, but I'm the last one out here doing this. That is your choice, she said. Yeah, he said again. It is. He felt the pull of the line, that thin band of light marking the edge of dead space. He'd held it for years now, stubborn and solitary. He thought of laying that burden down, of leaving it to councils and committees. But then he imagined another ship like the one he'd just destroyed, slipping through while no one was watching. Another beam sweeping out, erasing the last scraps of humanity's story. He couldn't stomach it. Set a new patrol route, he said softly. Widen the sweep by 5 light towers in all directions. Give us a slightly different dance. Updating course, she said. You intend to continue. Until I can't, he said, or until someone better takes over, or until I can put up a sign big enough that no one can pretend they didn't see it. You cannot guard this border forever, she said. He smiled just a little. I don't have to, I just have to guard it today. He unstrapped from the cradle. His legs felt weak under him as he stepped out onto the deck. You got those prisoners squared away? He asked. They are confined in Cargo Bay 3, she said. Disarmed and under monitoring, no immediate threat. Good, he rubbed his face. I'll go look them in the eyes later, make sure they understand the weight of what they tried to do. And now, she asked. Now, he glanced up at the dome, at the stars outside, more distant than any photograph. Now I'm going to get some coffee. And maybe sleep for more than a few minutes. He started down the corridor. The worn brass letters of the ship's name glimmered as he passed, catching the light. By the way, he said, you never did tell me what new word the council used this time, in that threat message. I did, she said. You forgot. Remind me. Appropriate measures, she said. He snorted. Let them measure away. We've got our own yardstick out here. In his quarters, he paused under the wheat field photograph. The room still smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air. He poured himself coffee from the small brewer, the bitter steam curling up. He raised the cup toward the photograph, as if to an old acquaintance. To the dead, he murmured, and to the living fools who keep their watch. He drank. It was lukewarm and terrible. It was perfect. Outside, the ship turned on its new course, a solitary giant tracing a slow arc along the edge of a scar on the galaxy. In her belly, aliens who had come to erase a people sat in a stolen cargo bay, listening to the groan of an ancient hull. Some of them prayed, some cursed, some stared at the walls and wondered what it meant that the last human had spared them. Stories, Hale thought as he set his cup down and stretched tired muscles. That's what they'll carry home if they get there. Stories about a man alone on a machine that should take 100 to run. A man who could have let them die and did not. A man who said asterisk no further for those who could no longer speak. He lay down on his bunk. The wheat field watched over him. The ship hummed, less wrong now, or maybe he was just too tired to hear it. Good night, Elias, the ship said. It's not night, he muttered. In here it is, she replied. He smiled into the pillow. Out on the border, the stars burned slow and indifferent. But on one small moving point of metal and memory, justice still had a pulse, faint and stubborn as a seed in winter, waiting for a spring that might never come and growing anyway.